Kia ora, I'm Erin J. Doyle. Welcome to my channel. This is far from my first take. I keep rambling, so I'm going to try and focus for this one and not start chatting about the weather and earthquakes and other things which have caused me stress and distraction in the last week or so. If you saw my last video, you'll know my region has declared a state of emergency, and there's been flooding and also been earthquakes. Like it's been a stressful week or two, but I'm fine. My home is perfectly dry and intact. There is no damage at all. Even at work, the building that I work in got flooded, but I work on the upper floors, so my office and my laboratory are perfectly fine. So it's been stressful and distracting, but I am fine. I have had no personal dramas, except the earthquakes, which stranger looming outside my window. The earthquakes have been, again, not super bad, only bad enough that like stuff fell out of the medicine cabinet, right? Like not horrific. But it turns out I do not like earthquakes. I've only discovered this recently. I had never been in an earthquake prior to, I want to say, late December, I think, was the first earthquake I was in. That was like a real earthquake and not kind of a vague, oh, there's the curtain moving level tremor. This was the first like significant quake I'd ever been in, and now I've been in many, and I do not like them. I have definitely discovered a significant fear, I think, actually just in the last month. So that's been fun, but I'm fine. I'm fine. Anyway, so aside from just that quick-ish update on that, I thought I would give you a bit of an update on the writing situation, because I feel like it's been a while since I told you what I've been doing, and it's because I've been doing nothing for two reasons. One, it's summer, so I've been traveling, staying with family, you know, doing things that are not conducive to writing productivity, that requires access to certain equipment and quiet. These things are not available to me while I am visiting family and friends. So yeah, there hasn't been much going on. But even before that, I was very busy at work and putting in a lot of hours at home in the evenings as well, so no writing. So yeah, it's been a very unproductive and uninspiring time. However, where am I up to? So I think last time I updated you, I was talking about waiting for beta reader feedback. So I had sort of come to this point where I was struggling to write my blurb for various reasons I have discussed in a previous video. And I felt like I needed a blurb in order to recruit a beta reader who was a stranger, right? Like if I was going to use you know, any kind of website to try and get a beta reader, I needed to be able to tell people what the book is about. And I knew that the blurb I had written was too short and seemed to provide the incorrect information, and people who read it were assuming incorrect things about the story. So I already knew my blurb was bad. And I thought that a way to maybe help me figure this out would be to get someone who wasn't a complete stranger and would just beta read it as a favour to beta read it. Now I did pick someone who's not like a super close friend. This is a friend who is the wife of someone I used to work with and who's a librarian. So there's some professionalism and a bit of, you know, distance from me in this friend. It's not like it's someone that I've known my whole life. And I thought I could get her to beta read it, and as part of that I provided two sets of questions. One was things which were meant to just be kind of prompts or questions that I wanted to have her think about while she was reading, so that yeah, she just kind of knew what sort of things to pick out and highlight if she noticed them whilst reading it, which I provided because she hadn't beta read before. And then the plan was when she finished, I was going to provide her with a second set of questions which were much more specific, because I wanted, yes, general feedback on, you know, the experience of reading it, but then there were also a few things I was like, now that you have read it, did you notice this? How did you feel about that? That kind of thing. And it didn't go well. The feedback that I got was extremely positive, for sure, but it wasn't a beta reader feedback at all. I got sort of a text message with comments of the praising variety for the first chapter, and then I got a text of the same nature for the final chapter, and that was it. So I was like, okay, well, that's not what I needed, but fine, and I sent the second set of questions. I'm like, hey, if you've got time, can you go over these? And then no response. And I'm not gonna worry about it like this was, you know, a friend doing me a thankless favour kind of thing. Like, it's fine. It's inconvenient, but, you know, no worries. But this meant that my plan of getting some feedback from someone who wasn't familiar with how much of the story was based on my own life, because a small portion of it is, I want feedback from someone like that to help me write a blurb for reasons. I think the issue that I have with trying to write the blurb myself, or if I'm trying to bounce ideas off someone who knows me and my life, or who knew me at the time that I was walking the Camino de Santiago, the problem is that we know a certain event from the book, which is from my life, and so it feels like the book should be about that event, but it's not. That event is important in the book, but it's not really what the book is about. So if I was to ask someone who knows me very well to help me with writing a blurb, they kind of focus on that event as if that's what the book is about, as opposed to a thing that happens in the book. So my plan to get this slightly more distant person's thoughts on the book to help me write a good blurb that I could then use to recruit an actual stranger to beta read hasn't worked. Which really does leave me with just, well, you're going to have to just write a blurb all by yourself. And I'm like, I can't. And I think, as I discussed in the previous video where I was talking about why I suck at writing blurbs, I think I can understand why I'm bad at writing them, but that doesn't make it easy to fix. Like, I still struggle, and yep. So whilst I have been facing that struggle, I thought, well, I can't do much, but I can print off a hard copy of the book, all 368 pages of it, and I can proofread it. So that's basically what I've been doing. So the method that I've been using here is just reading it as one does, and then when I find something that needs to be changed, I'll write in a correction and I'll put in a post-it, or in this case like a shredded chunk of a big post-it, because I don't need a big post-it for that. And the idea is that I can then go through this and remove the post-its as I address the issues on those pages. So far there is a post-it per page, so that method might just turn out to be a waste of paper, but I'm hoping at some point there'll be pages that don't have typos or spelling mistakes or grammatical errors or things that I actually think I need to double check after all. But yeah, that's about where I'm up to. The other thing I have done is pick a name. And do I want to share it? I think I do. My hesitation with sharing the title is like, what if, you know, I actually managed to get past my current barrier to success and get an agent and a publisher and they're like, that name's stupid, change it. Like, I don't want to put the name out there, but I'm very excited about this name. What I ended up doing was going on to Goodreads and I think Amazon. I don't know where, those are owned by the same a-hole. Anyway, so I went on to these platforms and I put in Camino de Santiago and Camino as separate things, and put those as I searched for Camino de Santiago is what I'm attempting to say, and I just looked at all the books that came up that were on this, and I also looked up just Camino alone because you don't always use the whole title, and I looked at all of the titles that came up and what they had in common and what keywords seemed to bring up what kind of books, and I put in various other keywords like pilgrim, pilgrimage. I actually had a giant list, but those are the only ones that pop into my head just at this moment. And I looked at all the titles, what genres they were, and I wanted to know not just what titles were already out there, but what language was being used to advertise what kind of books. Because a lot of the books about the Camino de Santiago are non-fiction, a lot of them are memoirs by people who have walked the Camino. That makes a lot of sense. And a lot of them are super religious, which again makes a lot of sense because it is a Catholic pilgrimage. So I wanted to know what words seemed to bring up those kinds of books. I wanted to know what books were out there which were not religious memoirs and what titles they had used. Like, it was sort of just, I wanted an idea of what titles were out there. Anyway, so that was my first thought, because I thought, well, obviously I don't want to use a title that's already out there, but more importantly I don't want to use a title that misrepresents the book. If the book came up only in searches which also returned hyper-religious texts, that's not going to attract the correct reader. And if you were looking for it and it came up in a list of really hyper-religious non-fiction self-published books, and you were looking for something that wasn't those things, self-publishing is not a shame point there at all. I don't even know why I brought that up actually. But, you know, if you were looking for literary fiction and you saw my book in amongst that list, you might not pick it as being literary fiction just because you kind of might judge it based on its company, I guess was my thinking. So that kind of, I don't know if it really made a huge difference. I think it made me wary of using words that I was already wary of using, because I also didn't want people to read the title Camino de Santiago in my book title and hope that it was a religious or self-help or non-fiction type text and then read it and be very upset because it is not those things. Like, my character is rather cynical about religion actually, so I had to be careful when I knew that. So anyway, I eventually abandoned that method and I was trying to think of titles which more correctly reflected the themes of my book, and never mind the setting, even though the setting was a sales point, and that's why I originally was going to put it into the title. But like I said, you know, I had concerns about getting the wrong reader because of that choice. So I thought, instead of trying to gain readership by stressing the interesting setting, I was like, no, I'm just going to title it based on the content of the book, not the setting. And there was some potential, like, cheesy options that I could have used. My main character has the nickname Sun, and her mother does call her Sunshine, and I was thinking, well, if it's like a story about a woman overcoming shit and like life turning out to be awesome because of the stuff, then calling it Sunrise would kind of be like a good cliche cheesy option maybe. And I was kind of messing around with that, and then I actually picked a title essentially in the end because of a random thing that just kind of showed up on the internet. I don't even know where it was, but it was one of those things you occasionally find. It was like a list of words that cannot be translated into English. One of them was a Spanish word, and the meaning of this word kind of encompassed the entire kind of spirit of the book. And I was like, brilliant! It doesn't translate into English. Well, that's fucked. So then I put that word directly into Google Translate. And it does translate into English, it turns out, because it has two meanings. One of which cannot be translated, and the other is ghost. I'm like, so if someone, or goblin actually is the other translation that comes up. So if someone sees this book title and puts it into Google Translate as an English speaker, they're going to be told that the title is Ghost or Goblin. That's not the meaning I want. So what I ended up doing was still going with that word. I like the fact that it's a Spanish word, and I like one of the meanings, and then inside the front cover I have put like a dictionary definition to explain the meaning of the term, and I have put the desired meaning first above the ghost goblin meaning. And yeah, so this is a word that describes the emotional experience of looking at a piece of artwork. This is so good for this book because the opening scene is of a woman who is an artist but who hasn't painted in a long time, going to an art gallery and looking at another piece of art that is inspired by the Camino de Santiago and having a hyper emotional response to it, and setting off to do the Camino in response to a piece of art. Like, it's perfect, doesn't translate to English. So this is why I'm kind of like, it might be a bad title for that reason, because yeah, an English speaker's not going to get that translation, which is why I put it in the front cover. And I think that brings me, that noise was me flipping through the book because I'm fidgeting, so I'm now going to put this over here. So that's where I'm up to. I still don't have a blurb. I still haven't got a good beta reader, or a good solid everything that I want beta reader, I should say. I'm working on proofreading, and I have a title that's perfect but also very difficult, and I don't know how that's gonna work. So that's where I'm up to. So I thought my next step is really to make sure I actually get the proofreading done, because I've been proofreading it in my mind for like 2 or 3 months now. Like, I'm pretty sure I printed it in December, if not November, and I've only done a little bit, and it's because of Christmas and distractions and natural disasters and work and all those kinds of things. So what I have decided I'm going to do is acknowledge that the chapters are very short. Like, there are a few lengthy chapters, but many of them are very short. So my goal is going to be to proofread 1 chapter every day until it's done, and I think that's going to take me less than 2 months. Like, I think there are 48 chapters, I think. They're not strictly speaking numbered, so that's why I can never remember. So yeah, that's the plan. My chair is squeaky. And it has occurred to me that I might do some, you know, aesthetic edit with me type videos, which I think I know I posted one of earlier this month. I'm probably going to film more of those just as a additional thing, not the weekly video thing, so I might just occasionally have an extra video up for that if there's like a particularly aesthetic background noise that people might enjoy. I'm going to do that just as like a random extra thing, but also accountability. And I thought what I might do, and I big emphasis on the word might. I make no commitments. I might see about maybe once a week going and finding somewhere in the city, whether that's a cafe, a library, a park, etc., and doing the proofreading somewhere different. Partly because the lighting in my abode is terrible and I don't want to like go blind. I don't read or anything when I'm at home because the lighting is so shitty. I always read when I'm out of the house, which is I think the other reason the proofreading has taken ages. So we're gonna see about like going on some field trips to areas with quiet and good lighting so that I can do more concentrated proofreading without straining my eyes. Anyway, I have been talking for forever, so I'm gonna go and maybe do some proofreading. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the idea of having a non-English, not easily translated title if a definition for that title is provided inside the cover. I'd be interested to know what you think of that as an option. And yeah, if you liked this video and you want to, feel free to give it a like. If you are new around here, maybe consider hitting subscribe, and I'll see you next time, hopefully with a slightly more coherent video, because I feel like I have been rambling. But we're very hot and tired, so we're just gonna probably leave the rambling in. Anyway, see you next time.